There's a fruit tree that produces food in 6 months, not 6 years, not 6 seasons of waiting and wondering if you planted the right variety. 6 months from the day you put a cutting in the ground to the day you eat fruit from the branch. Apple trees take 4 to 8 years to produce their first fruit. Pear trees take 4 to 6 years. Cherry trees take 4 to 7 years. Peach trees, the fastest of the common fruits, still take 2 to 4 years. This tree produces in 6 months. The same summer you plant it, you harvest from it. The same year you decide to grow fruit, you eat fruit. The waiting that defines fruit growing does not apply to this tree. This tree lives for 500 years. Not 50 years like apple trees. Not 30 years like peach trees. 500 years of continuous production. A tree planted today will feed your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. There are specimens of this tree still producing fruit that were planted before Columbus reached America. There are trees in the Mediterranean that have fed families for 20 generations. There are trees that have watched empires rise and fall while continuing to bear fruit every single year. This tree grows from cuttings with near-perfect success. You do not need to buy trees from nurseries. You do not need to graft or bud or perform any specialized propagation technique. You cut a branch from an existing tree. You stick it in the ground. It grows. A single mature tree can produce 100 cuttings. 100 cuttings can produce 100 trees. Within 5 years, you can have an orchard that produces thousands of pounds of fruit annually. Started from a single branch someone gave you for free, this tree requires almost no care. It does not need spraying. It does not need special pruning. It does not need the constant attention that apples and peaches demand. You plant it. You water it during drought. You harvest when the fruit is ripe. The tree does everything else. This tree produces fruit so nutritious that ancient civilizations considered it sacred. The fruit contains more fiber than any other common fruit. More potassium than bananas, more calcium than oranges, more iron than most vegetables. A complete nutritional package that sustained armies and athletes and empires. And you have probably walked past this tree 1,000 times without knowing what it was. The nursery industry has made sure you never learned about it, because a tree that grows from free cuttings is a tree they cannot sell. A tree that lives 500 years is a tree you never need to replace. A tree that produces in 6 months does not keep customers coming back season after season. The industry profits from your ignorance. They profit from selling you apple trees that take years to produce and decades to die. They profit from selling you replacement trees when those trees fail. They profit from every year you wait for fruit that this tree would have given you the first summer. Today we are opening the file on the fruit tree that produces faster and lives longer than any other. The tree that grows from cuttings anyone can take. The food that sustained ancient civilizations and could sustain you. And the industry that hopes you never discover it. If this matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. The file is open. The tree is called the fig. Ficus carica, the common fig. The tree that has fed humanity longer than any other cultivated fruit. The tree that appears in the oldest texts of every Mediterranean civilization. The tree that humans have been eating for over 11,000 years. The fig is not just old. The fig is the beginning. Archaeological evidence from the Jordan Valley, published in Science in 2006, documented carbonized figs from a site dated to 11,400 years ago. These figs were a sterile variety that could only have been propagated by humans. Someone, 11,400 years ago, was cultivating figs deliberately. This predates wheat cultivation by 1,000 years. This predates barley cultivation by 1,000 years. This predates every grain, every legume, every other fruit that humans have grown. The fig was the first cultivated plant. Before agriculture meant fields of grain, agriculture meant fig trees. Before humans settled into farming villages, they were tending fig trees. Before civilization began, the fig had already been domesticated. This history should make the fig famous. This history should put figs at the center of every discussion about food and agriculture and human development. Instead, Americans buy apples. Apples, which were domesticated 4,000 years ago in Kazakhstan. Apples, which require complex grafting to reproduce true to variety. Apples, which need constant spraying and pruning and attention. The nursery industry prefers that you buy apples. Apples require expertise they can sell. Apples require trees they control. Apples require the entire support system that generates revenue. Figs require almost nothing. Figs generate almost no recurring revenue. Figs are bad for business. The fig appears in every foundational text of Western civilization. The Bible mentions figs more than any other fruit. Adam and Eve covered themselves with fig leaves. The Promised Land was described as flowing with figs and grapes and pomegranates. Jesus cursed a barren fig tree. The fig was present at the beginning and the end of the biblical narrative. The ancient Greeks considered the fig sacred to Dionysus. They passed laws prohibiting the export of the finest figs. The word sycophant, meaning someone who reveals secrets for personal gain, originally meant one who shows figs, referring to those who reported illegal fig exporters. The Romans believed that Rome itself was founded beneath a fig tree. The twins Romulus and Remus were said to have been nursed by a wolf beneath a fig's branches. The tree was so sacred that a fig tree in the Roman Forum was tended for centuries as a living monument. The athletes of ancient Greece ate figs as their primary training food. The first Olympic competitors consumed figs for energy and recovery. The fruit that modern athletes ignore powered the original champions. These civilizations did not venerate the fig because they lacked options. They venerated the fig because they understood what it offered. They had access to every fruit of the Mediterranean. They chose the fig above all others. Modern Americans choose apples because modern Americans have been taught to choose apples. The teaching serves industry, not nutrition. The choice reflects marketing, not wisdom. The speed of fig production seems impossible until you understand how the tree works. Most fruit trees require years to develop the mature wood that produces fruit. The tree must grow to substantial size. It must develop a root system capable of supporting fruit production. It must accumulate resources over multiple growing seasons. Figs do not follow these rules. A fig cutting planted in spring develops roots within weeks. The cutting begins growing immediately, pushing new leaves from every bud. By midsummer, the cutting has become a small tree. The small tree begins producing fruit on its new growth within the first season, not on old wood like apples or cherries, on the branches that grew that same year. The fruit that forms in late summer ripens before frost. You plant a cutting in April. You harvest figs in September. The timeline is not theoretical. It happens every year for everyone who plants fig cuttings. The second year, production increases dramatically. The tree is established. The root system is developed. Every branch from the previous year produces fruit, and every new branch produces additional fruit. By year 3, a fig tree produces more fruit than most families can consume. By year 5, production is measured in hundreds of pounds. By year 10, a single tree can produce 1,000 pounds of figs annually. This productivity continues for centuries. The tree does not decline like apple trees decline. It does not require replacement after 30 years. It simply continues producing, decade after decade, century after century. The trees in Mediterranean countries that are 300 and 400 and 500 years old are not museum pieces. They are working trees, producing commercial crops, feeding families exactly as they have fed families for 20 generations. The propagation of figs is so simple that it seems like a mistake. Fig cuttings root with approximately 90% success rate. This is extraordinary. Most fruit tree cuttings fail without specialized treatment. Most require rooting hormones, misting systems, and careful attention. Fig cuttings require nothing except soil and water. The process is simple. In late winter, when the tree is dormant, cut a branch approximately the thickness of a pencil and the length of your forearm. This branch contains everything needed to become a new tree. Plant the cutting with 2/3 buried in soil and 1/3 above ground. Water it. Wait. Within weeks, the buds on the exposed portion begin to swell. Within a month, leaves emerge. Below the soil, roots are developing from every buried node. By the end of the first growing season, the cutting has become a tree with a developed root system, multiple branches, and possibly fruit. The transformation from stick to tree occurs in a single year. This process can be repeated indefinitely. Every branch pruned from a fig tree is a potential new tree. Every tree can produce dozens of cuttings every year. The multiplication is essentially unlimited. A neighbor with a fig tree can provide cuttings that start your orchard. A friend in another city can mail you cuttings that arrive ready to plant. A community that shares cuttings can ensure that everyone has figs without anyone paying nursery prices. This sharing tradition has sustained fig cultivation for millennia. Cuttings have passed from generation to generation, from country to country, from continent to continent. The varieties grown in California today descend from cuttings brought by Spanish missionaries 300 years ago. Those cuttings descended from trees cultivated in Spain for 1,000 years before that. The chain of custody stretches back through history. Every fig tree connects to every other fig tree through the cuttings that created them. The tree in your yard could trace its lineage to trees that fed Roman emperors. The nursery industry cannot compete with free cuttings. A patented apple variety costs $30 to $50 as a grafted tree. The variety is protected by intellectual property law. You cannot legally propagate it. You must purchase every tree from licensed nurseries. A fig cutting costs nothing. There are no patents on ancient varieties. Anyone can propagate them. The distribution network is neighbors and friends and internet strangers who mail cuttings across the country. The industry has attempted to respond by developing proprietary fig varieties. They have bred figs with specific characteristics and claimed intellectual property protection. They have tried to turn figs into a controlled product like apples. These attempts have largely failed. The traditional varieties are too good. The free distribution network is too established. The 11,000-year head start that traditional figs have over patented varieties is insurmountable. So the industry has chosen a different strategy. They simply do not promote figs. Walk into any nursery in spring and you will find hundreds of apple trees, dozens of varieties, extensive signage explaining which apples are best for eating and which are best for baking and which are best for cider. You might find 3 fig varieties. You might find none. The staff might not know how to grow them. The information available will be minimal or wrong. This is not because figs are difficult. This is because figs are unprofitable. The nursery makes more money selling apple trees that you must buy than fig cuttings you could get for free. The lack of promotion has created a knowledge gap. Americans do not know how to grow figs because no one has taught them. They do not grow figs because they believe figs are exotic or difficult or unsuited to their climate. These beliefs are wrong. The beliefs serve the industry. The beliefs cost Americans the most productive fruit tree they could grow. The climate range of figs extends far beyond what most people imagine. The traditional image of figs involves Mediterranean terraces and North African oases. The image suggests that figs require hot, dry climates that most of America cannot provide. This image is wrong. Figs grow successfully in USDA zones 7 through 11. This includes most of the American South and West. It includes the Pacific Northwest. It includes parts of the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic. Figs grow in Seattle, they grow in Portland, they grow in Philadelphia, they grow in New York City, they grow in Chicago with winter protection. They grow anywhere that temperatures remain above 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The trees are more cold hardy than their Mediterranean origin suggests. They have been selected over centuries for cold tolerance by gardeners at the edge of their range. The varieties that survived in England and Germany and Pennsylvania are now available to everyone. In truly cold climates, figs can be grown in containers and brought indoors for winter. A fig in a 25-gallon pot produces abundant fruit and can be wheeled into a garage when temperatures threaten. In marginal climates, figs can be wrapped or buried for winter protection. The branches die back, but the roots survive. The tree regrows each spring and produces fruit on the new growth. The only American regions truly unsuited for figs are those with extreme cold. The northern tier states and high mountain areas. Even there, container culture allows production. The majority of Americans can grow figs. The majority of Americans do not grow figs. The gap between capability and practice reflects marketing, not horticulture. The nutritional profile of figs exceeds most common fruits. Fresh figs contain more fiber per serving than any other common fruit. The fiber is a combination of soluble and insoluble types that support digestive health, stabilize blood sugar, and promote satiety. Fresh figs contain more potassium per serving than bananas, the fruit famously associated with potassium. They contain more calcium per serving than oranges. They contain more iron per serving than most vegetables. Fresh figs contain unique compounds called phycins, enzymes that aid protein digestion. These enzymes have been used traditionally to tenderize meat. They continue working in your digestive system after you eat the fig. Dried figs concentrate these nutrients further. A handful of dried figs provides significant amounts of calcium, potassium, magnesium, and iron. They provide fiber that most American diets lack. They provide energy in a form that does not spike blood sugar the way refined sugars do. Ancient athletes knew this. Ancient armies knew this. Ancient civilizations knew this. They ate figs because figs provided what they needed. Modern Americans eat apples. Apples provide far less nutrition than figs. But apples are marketed and figs are not. Marketing determines consumption regardless of nutrition. The sugar content of figs deserves clarification. Figs are sweet. They contain natural sugars. Some people avoid them believing that their sugar content makes them unhealthy. This belief reflects a misunderstanding of sugar metabolism. The sugars in figs are bound with fiber, water, and cellular structure. They release slowly during digestion. The glycemic index of fresh figs is 51, classified as low. The glycemic load per serving is minimal. Compare this to apple juice, which most Americans consider healthy. Apple juice has a glycemic index near 70 and delivers sugar with none of the fiber that would slow absorption. The fig provides sweetness without the metabolic damage of processed sugars. The fiber that accompanies the sugar moderates its impact. The cellular structure of the fruit slows digestion naturally. Dried figs are more concentrated and should be eaten in smaller quantities. But even dried figs have a lower glycemic impact than most processed snacks. The fiber remains, the metabolic benefit persists. The concern about fig sugar content reflects industry messaging rather than nutritional science. The industries that sell processed snacks benefit when whole fruits are viewed with suspicion. They do not benefit when people eat figs instead of cookies. The care requirements of figs are minimal compared to other fruit trees. Apple trees require spraying for dozens of diseases and pests: codling moth, apple scab, fire blight, powdery mildew, cedar apple rust, and more. Without spraying, most apple crops are lost. Figs require no spraying. The tree has few serious pests in North America. The fruits are protected by their unique structure. The tree's natural defenses handle most challenges without human intervention. Apple trees require careful pruning to maintain productivity and prevent disease. The pruning must be done at specific times with specific techniques. Improper pruning reduces yields and invites infection. Figs require minimal pruning. The tree produces fruit on new growth regardless of pruning. Pruning is done primarily to maintain size and shape. The technique is simple and the timing is flexible. Apple trees require thinning to prevent biennial bearing and ensure fruit size. Each cluster must be reduced to 1 or 2 fruits. This tedious work must be done every year. Figs require no thinning. The tree sets only as much fruit as it can mature. Self-regulation is built into the biology. The labor difference is dramatic. An apple tree demands dozens of hours per year in spraying, pruning, and thinning. A fig tree demands almost nothing. This labor difference is why the commercial industry prefers apples. The labor creates jobs. The spraying creates chemical sales. The expertise creates consulting opportunities. Figs bypass this entire system. A tree that requires nothing generates no economic activity beyond the initial planting. This is good for homeowners. It is bad for industry. The harvest of figs extends over months rather than weeks. Apple trees ripen their fruit over a 2 to 3 week period. The entire crop must be harvested within this window. Storage or processing must handle the entire yield at once. Fig trees ripen fruit sequentially over 2 to 3 months. A few figs ripen each day throughout the season. The harvest is a daily activity rather than a seasonal crisis. This extended harvest suits home production perfectly. A family can eat fresh figs every day from July through October. They never face the pressure of processing bushels of fruit before it spoils. The figs that do exceed daily consumption can be dried easily. Simply slice and place in the sun or a dehydrator. The high sugar content preserves the fruit without additional processing. Dried figs store for years without refrigeration. This preservation method is older than civilization itself. The 11th 400-year-old figs found in the Jordan Valley were dried figs. The same technique that worked then works now. A single mature fig tree can produce fresh fruit for daily eating, plus enough surplus for drying to last the entire year. The tree provides complete fruit self-sufficiency for a household. The varieties of figs available far exceed what most Americans imagine. Most Americans, if they know figs at all, know only the brown turkey fig available in some supermarkets. This is one variety out of hundreds. There are figs that taste like honey. There are figs that taste like berry jam. There are figs that taste like caramel. There are figs with flavor complexity that rivals fine wine. There are figs with green skin and red flesh. There are figs with purple skin and amber flesh. There are figs with stripes. There are figs with dramatically different sizes, from the size of a marble to the size of a small apple. There are figs suited to humid climates and figs suited to arid climates. There are figs that ripen early and figs that ripen late. There are figs that produce 1 crop and figs that produce 2 crops per year. This diversity reflects 11,000 years of human selection. Every region that grew figs developed varieties suited to local conditions and local tastes. The accumulated variety is a treasure that most Americans never experience. The fig collectors who maintain this diversity share cuttings freely. The network exists online and in person. Anyone who wants rare varieties can obtain them. The only cost is the time to learn what is available. The commercial nurseries that sell fig trees offer perhaps a dozen varieties. The collector networks offer hundreds. The choice between commercial limitations and community abundance is clear. The lifespan of figs creates a different relationship with planting. When you plant an apple tree, you plant for 30 years. You might see the tree decline. You will certainly see it replaced. When you plant a fig tree, you plant for 500 years. You will not see the tree decline. Your grandchildren will not see the tree decline. The tree will outlive everyone who plants it. This changes the meaning of planting. A fig tree is not a crop. A fig tree is a legacy. It connects you to everyone who will tend it after you. It connects you to everyone who tended it before you. The fig trees growing in Mediterranean countries have names. They have histories. The people who care for them know those histories. The trees are members of families. This relationship with trees has been lost in American culture. We plant trees and remove trees based on short-term considerations. We do not plant trees for our great-great-grandchildren because we cannot imagine our great-great-grandchildren. The fig invites us to imagine them. The fig will feed them as it feeds us. The fig will still be producing when everyone watching this video has passed from the world. Planting a fig is an act of faith in the future. It is a statement that the future matters. It is a gift to people you will never meet. The commercial culture does not understand this gift. It understands quarterly profits and annual sales. It cannot value a transaction that extends across centuries. The Amish understand this gift. They plant fig trees knowing their descendants will harvest. They maintain trees their ancestors planted. They live within a timeline that extends beyond individual lifespans. This understanding is available to anyone who plants a fig tree. The timeline begins the day you put a cutting in the ground. The nursery industry cannot sell you what a fig tree offers. They cannot sell you 11,000 years of history. They cannot sell you 500 years of production. They cannot sell you free cuttings from neighbors and friends. They can only hope you never learn what figs provide. They can only hope you continue buying apple trees that require their expertise and their products and their replacements. They can only hope you never discover the tree that produces in 6 months and lives for 5 centuries. Now you know. You know that the fig was humanity's first cultivated plant. You know that civilizations venerated it for reasons that remain valid today. You know that it produces faster and lives longer than any other fruit tree. You know that it grows from cuttings anyone can take. You know that it requires almost no care. You know that it provides nutrition that exceeds the fruits the industry promotes. You know that it grows in most of America. You know that hundreds of varieties exist. You know that the collector networks share them freely. You know that the industry has hidden this tree because the tree cannot be controlled. You know that free cuttings and 500-year lifespans do not generate revenue. You know that your ignorance has served their interests. The fig does not need the industry. The fig has survived 11,000 years of human cultivation without modern nurseries. It will survive 11,000 more. The fig needs only someone to plant it, someone to care for it, someone to pass it to the next generation. That someone could be you. A cutting planted this spring, fruit harvested this fall, a tree that will still be producing when your name has been forgotten, but your gift remains. The first cultivated plant, the last tree you will ever need to plant. If this video helped you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every share plants what they wanted hidden. The next video opens soon.